Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, and today I'll be reading a multi-character listener by me. So let's get into it. Inosuke. Inosuke never meant to be as intimidating as he was, but it was more of a thing that he was born with, and his nature as well. But it wasn't that he disliked it, he just hated it when he was in a relationship, because it meant that anything that he did with you and during any fight that you had, he would automatically be intimidating. He never wanted to intimidate you in that way, or at all. He just wanted to be able to argue with you, like normal couples did. It wasn't that he fancied arguing, but some things you'd had differences, and instead of talking them out like normal, you would argue, and you'd have to argue back. But he just didn't continue the argument then. He never knew why, until today. He noticed it then, when he yelled at you. Well, not specifically because he was mad at you. He raised his voice just as you had raised yours, perhaps a little bit more, and then you flinched. And that's when he looked at you and saw the way that you had fear in your eyes. You looked like you were scared of him, and the thought itself seemed ridiculous, but hurtful. That's what it was. It hurt him more than anything else. The thought stabbed at his heart, and suddenly all the fight left his body. Are you scared of me, Wayan? He asks. Honest. No way to just beat around the bush around this. You have to say it to get an answer. But once you look away and don't respond, he knows your answer. So he just sighs, does not continue the argument, and goes to his room. Perhaps you'll need to talk about this later. Perhaps he's been doing something wrong all this time, or there's something you aren't telling him. There are many possibilities and many things that may have been. But right now he can't handle it. Not with the guilt swelling up in his heart. Not with a voice in his head telling him that he had just messed up so badly. So later it would be, when he was ready to hear it from your mouth. Muichiro. Muichiro was hardly ever scary, at least with you. He was gentle, an angel, like he had just descended from heaven to make you happy and feel loved. Hardly ever would you fight, and once you did, mostly it would end with something easy. A solution that he would propose, or you would, or just a way to end it would be telling you that you will discuss it tomorrow. But this one, it was a heated argument, and the two of you would not stop, just arguing back and forth at one another. And that's when he yells at you, and you flinch from his raised voice in fear. He looks at you, and you can see the way his eyes, just widen at what he had seen. Lion, I didn't mean to scare you. I didn't mean to yell like that. You nod, not really sure what else to say or do. You still feel a little bit nervous, and tell him that you need some time to feel like you've calmed down and to feel like he has to. And he nods because you're right about it. But he stays there in the living room, going nowhere near your room until you ask him to, because he had been sitting there with his guilt, mulling over everything he said, everything he did, and every possible time he could have scared you or frightened you, without even meaning to. That's when you wrap him in your arms and tell him that you were just overreacting. It wasn't about him. It was about your past, the people you've been with before him, your family, and the way they treated you. And he holds you so gently. He kisses you then, stroking your hair. Just trust me, Wyatt. I won't hurt you. I never will. I promise. And looking at him now, and the way he felt guilty for just yelling at you, you can believe him when he says he never will. Tengen. Usually Tengen keeps his temper in check. Usually he doesn't yell at you. And usually fights do not get to this extent. But things are bound to happen. Things that neither you nor him wanted. And that meant fighting sometimes was not an option. But it was a necessity. Or so you thought, in that moment where you decided to fight over something. It was so insignificant to him now, when he had yelled at you, took a step towards you, anger visible on his every feature, and you flinched back, fearful. There was a moment of hesitance that crossed him, and after all of that, his eyes widened. It was like he was seeing something for the first time, realizing something, and he looked horrible after. Guilt etched onto his face. I'm sorry. Wyan, I can... No, Tengen, please. You tell him. You weren't ready to talk. The memories that you had on your mind, the thoughts that came into your head, they were all too terrifying. And it doesn't help that he was the one who was scaring you just a moment ago. He didn't mean it. Maybe he wouldn't hurt you. You trusted him on that. But your mind said otherwise. And you couldn't help it. You couldn't stop the thoughts from circulating in your head over and over, scaring you, no matter what you did or what you believed. And Tengen only stood there, nodding, because he knew it was his fault. I'm sorry, he says one last time, and he nods, telling him that you're not mad at him. At the very least, it won't be permanent, especially if he's so sorry about this. And you go to your room. Tengen sleeps on the couch that day, deciding not to bother you. But as to what happens next, he talks to you, a very important talk, and he wants to know, what was it that scared you so much? Surely it wasn't his yelling. Surely he wasn't that scary because he'd never hurt you before. He only wants the truth, and he knows, no matter what you tell him, he will try to be better and do better for you.